What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video. And today we are going to be breaking down the brand new CBS mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube jazz trying to get to 10K by the end of the year. Y'all can only make that happen. So feel free to hop on the hype train while it is early. Below my face is my board. Below that are also all the amazing perks that you get to have just by being a fan of the show. And all those links are also in the description, as well as in my link tree in my Twitter, etc. So feel free to get involved there. Also, yesterday we did a mock on Connor Rogers mock draft. We posted it. Connor Rogers said he's coming onto the show. That's fucking incredible. I love that. So shout out to Connor. Love you. Beast. Obviously a guy who I look up to in the industry. He'll be on the show after the season, so I am super stoked for that. So you guys should be stoked too. Let's get right into this. And starting off, this is going to be a relatively quicker mock. I actually already pre-read through some of this, and there's actually some pretty damn good picks in here. So I usually tear Josh apart because, we all love to do that in the industry. And, he is someone who posts mock drafts quite often as well. So we always like to be able to talk about it and, we'll just get through this. So prefacing it with saying there's quite a few actually pretty solid picks in here. Starting out with pick number 1. Again, Caleb Williams is arguably the best talent we've ever seen come out of college. Some people put Marvin Harrison above him, but you're essentially choosing between two of the greatest talents we've ever seen. Caleb has his personality issues, no doubt. And he does have those moments where he does a screw it throw. And it's just like, oh, okay. Like, why are you throwing that? But ultimately, this guy has been absolutely phenomenal. Just not many people can make the throws that he can. And, as much as I want to say, let's stick with Justin, there's a legitimate reason to try out Caleb Williams. So, take it as you will. But there is, if you do have 2 top 5 picks, and I know Justin's been hurt this year, but Justin had a couple good games. You need to be having only a couple bad games a year, not a couple good games, to be able to really make a difference. And again, I still think Justin could do that. However, I just think Caleb Williams has a far greater chance to do that. And then you get to save money against a potential $50 million cap hit with a quarterback. And, there's a lot of benefits to it. Of course, Drake May is a logical solution for the New York Giants. Some people are saying Marvin Harrison Jr. If it ends up with them believing in Daniel Jones that much, which I don't think they should, no disrespect to Daniel, but Drake May is a far superior product. But if they end up going that route, I'm not going to get too mad about it because, again, you're getting one of the best players of all time in Marvin Harrison Jr. But Drake May is absolutely incredible. I'm continuing to try to boost them up my list, but the one fun thing about this draft, there are a lot of really good players. Having, Drake May right there around tied 15 with Bo Nix, that doesn't say he's the 15th best player. Like, it's not like he's a standard 15th best player in a class. This class has a lot of elite level players. Probably some of them who will return too, but that's a conversation for another day, and fingers crossed that doesn't exactly happen, so we get to see a lot of really fun players. Of course, the 2025 mocks might be a little desolate if we don't get to have guys like Amarius Mims return. But again, conversation for another day. Patriots going, Marvin Harrison Jr. here. I know that in the last mock draft I did of Connor Rogers, a lot of people got mad because it's Olaf Hushanu over Marvin Harrison. I personally believe that Marvin Harrison is the more correct selection. But, pipe down. Pipe down, y'all. It's okay to get a little bit grouchy, but let's not start calling people who are far smarter than us morons, because if they're morons, what are we? I shouldn't be making videos if that guy's a moron. So, people make mistakes. Sometimes the draft is 7 rounds as well. Maybe Connor, because I don't know Connor's personal board, maybe Connor could have had another wide receiver there that he really loves that he would have slipped there in the second. And then it's perfectly fine. Again, you're missing out on arguably the best wide receiver of all time. So again, I don't agree with it, but there is logical reasons to go after offensive line. Speaking of going after offensive line, essentially you're going to be replacing DJ Humphries. I don't think that's the smartest move, but I wouldn't blame you at the same time. Paris Johnson to me shouldn't be a right tackle. He's not been bad, but I don't think he's been incredible. I think I'd rather have him for the long run at left tackle rather than draft a future at left tackle. You could have probably stayed in place if Paris Johnson kept falling and had the Bears draft Paris Johnson and then you draft Darnell Wright if you wanted a right tackle. Another conversation for another day. Still, it's a very talented player. I would prefer to go after even Kool-Aid McKinstry at this point because this cornerback class is relatively thin. You got Dallas Turner for the Bears. I'm not going to disagree with it. I'd prefer to go Joe Alt here, but Dallas Turner is a spectacular player. I have him above Joe Alt by 10 spots. So talent-wise, I totally agree. And the Bears can always use some extra additions on the D-line. You got Montez Sweat there now, and then Dallas Turner. It's a way to make this defense a truly Bears defense. So I'm not going to complain about it too much. Great player. I just would probably try to prefer to get something for the offense. You got Joe Alt here for the Packers, one of my favorite picks for them. So obviously, you know how I feel about that. They need a left tackle. Bakhtiari probably won't even be there next year with the way that Aaron Rodgers is trying to recruit him. But even if he is, he's not reliably healthy. You need to get the contingency plan, and I don't like Rasheed Walker to be that contingency plan. So Joe Alt is the far superior product, and it's a very solid value. They get a star left tackle at pick 6. It sounds like it's really high. It's not. To get somebody who is that valuable to a roster, who will be on your roster for 10 to 15 years at pick 6, is well worth it. You got J.C. Latham here for the Rams, someone who's one of my biggest risers this year. He's an incredible player. Actually, he's right there at number 19 on my board. He's spectacular. I'm not going to blame the Rams. They need extra help in the O-line. Whether Stafford returns or not is, that's up for debate. But if he does, offensive tackle is going to be key. If he doesn't, offensive tackle is still going to be key. So J.C. Latham is a great addition. He was early on what I chose for the Rams in my early mock drafts, and honestly, I'm all down for it now as well. Titans game Brock Bowers. I personally would prefer to go after Keon Coleman because I think he fits the boundary receiver that fits Will Levis best, but I sure as hell am not going to be giving this below an A+. Maybe I would give it an A because I'm like, oh, okay, well, Keon Coleman just fits the exact role I think this team should be looking for. But Brock Bowers is the generational talent, while Keon Coleman is a very much of a blue chip player. So I get it, and it makes sense. I don't disagree with it. Just deep down inside, I have hopes for Keon Coleman to be the guy. You got Jared Verse here for the Falcons. Since he's up to 260 pounds, I do think he can fit into that edge rusher role that will be vacant once Bud Dupree leaves. He's a very special talent. I do think quarterback's the better position to target here, but this is position number 2. You got Latu for the Washington Commanders, still trying to get around to him, but I do think based on how the public sees him, that is the right selection for the Commanders. Or offensive line. I'd prefer to go after offensive line, but edge rusher is pretty vacant for you guys at the moment, which is weird to say, but it is what it is. You got the Buccaneers. I don't think J.J. McCarthy deserves to be taken over Bo or Michael Penix. I know he's younger, so that's one of the benefits. But ultimately, he is smaller. He has bigger lapses of play on his tape than the other two do. I'm not going to try to shame J.J. McCarthy because I don't think he's a bad QB, but it's just compared to the other ones that are available, I think Bo Nix is superior to J.J. McCarthy in pretty much every stance. They fit the bill a lot better. Yes, they're a little bit older, but again, quarterbacks last until they're 38 now. So for me, not really too worried about age. You got Amarius Mims, who I think should probably be a top 10 pick, but I just don't think he'll come out because he's super young, and he probably will be a top 10 or top 5 pick in the 2025 draft. We'll talk about that another day again if he decides to return. But if he's here, the Jets would surely not make a bet. It would be an amazing decision. It would probably be the best pick of the draft so far. You got Johnny Newton here at pick 13 for the Broncos. I don't know if establishing the interior is where the Broncos should prioritize. You have great edge rushers on the board. That's a great place to go. You got the top tier corners. That's a great place to go. For me, I would go there first. You have the quarterbacks available. I know Mr. Unlimited is just doing a good job there, but, you didn't pay him to do a good job. You paid him to get to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl, and I just don't think that's more likely with him than a new infusion of youth. You got Kool-Aid McKinstry here for the Chargers, which is an A+ move. Essentially he's going to be the guy who replaces what J.C. Jackson should have been, but he's going to replace Michael Davis. Malik Neighbors for the Colts. That's a good role for him to play. Honestly, this makes sense. I really do like Malik Neighbors on this team. I personally want Alec Pierce to become the man who I thought he was, and we'll see if he does. But Malik Neighbors is not an elite receiver all around. He is role specific, but this is one of those roles where he will end up being elite. So, he's a deep threat who's good after the catch. That's the role that is available for the Colts right now. You got Josh Downs, who's going to be that slot separator. You have your possession guy in Michael Pittman if you re-sign him. And then Alec Pierce was supposed to be that deep threat, 6'4", 220 pounds, who can run a 4.4. He hasn't necessarily been that so far. Malik Neighbors could be. You got Nate Wiggins here for the Raiders. It feels like a very Raiders pick. DB is always something I'm open for the Raiders, so I'm not going to disagree with this pick at all. You got Cooper DeJean, which this is his best spot for him to go to. Pretty much he can play slot, he can play boundary, or he can play safety, which I think slot and safety is where he should go. And this team kind of has a vacancy at all those spots, so you find the best one for him. I just hope that I hope they consider him as the slot / safety. I'd rather them get redundant and take another corner than go after maybe another slot later on or another safety. But that's, again, there's a lot of debate whether or where Cooper DeJean is going to play, but this is probably his best location to play. You got Keon Coleman here for the Bengals. Y'all know I think he should be going higher than this, but it is what it is. This is a great spot for him to go. I have the Bengals trading up for him if he's ever available within range for him to replace T. Higgins. He kind of is T. Higgins. You got JT Tuimoloau here for the Saints. Not against this pick. I'm a little bit lower on JT than taking him in the top 20, but I'm just happy he's getting a little bit more love. He was kind of getting slanted there for a while, not even being taken in the second round of some mock drafts. He's a good player. He fits what the Saints are looking for. I'd prefer to go after defensive interior, honestly, based on the roster that you do have. You actually have Rashid Shaheed up for a contract, so it depends if you re-sign him. The best position to target right now is quarterback, but again, that's, we'll leave it at that. Chop Robinson for the Cardinals. They do need an edge rusher, and Chop Robinson could be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Just the potential is there. There's just so much potential for him not to succeed if he's not trained properly. But I do think Gannon has a workable system with players who have similar styles to Chop Robinson, i.e. Hassan Reddick. And I'm just hoping that he can make that work because Chop he's special. I just really want him to go to a place that there's a really good mentor for him. Jaden Daniels, I don't think he should be going above Michael Penix or Bo Nix. And I've been a big supporter of Jaden Daniels. I think this on its own is a very fine selection. Like, he essentially will step into the Josh Dobbs role, but have a higher upside. I'm just saying I have two quarterbacks above him, which I don't think is crazy to say by any stretch. Then we got Emeka Egbuka. So Emeka, I just don't know if the Cowboys would be in the mood to target a wide receiver, even though Emeka is just the BPA. And I'm pretty sure this is what he did last week as well, because pretty sure I did this exact same little combo right here, which y'all know how much I'm going to love this pick. But with the corners on the board, I'd be going corner. Or you go Graham Barton to play left tackle or center. I just think that's the best. Or you can go Talise Fuaga and say, screw it, we're going to test you out left tackle. But it looks like that's what the Steelers are in the mood to do. So this, y'all know, literally I have him as my number 4 player. It's my favorite team. I'm not going to disagree with this one. Talise Fuaga is a beast. Braylon Trice, I think, is an excellent selection for the Texans. People don't like to, get edge rusher because they don't need it. But this is a top 10 player in the draft. He's my number 8 player. And this team could never have enough edge rushing help. We're in a passing league, and this guy's an elite run defender. I do think defensive interior should be on your radar, but, I don't think this is a bad pick. I really don't. He's a great player. So, I love the respect that I'm seeing with Braylon Trice. Denzel Burke for the Dolphins. It's intriguing. They might get rid of X over the offseason. There is a potential chance of that. You have, I'm forgetting the South Carolina corner that you drafted last year. Like, he'll continue developing. He's shown to be far better than I ever expected him to be. I don't feel like this is a necessity, but of course, I don't think many picks for y'all are a necessity. Just, it's a good team all around. I would probably try to target a safety here, whether that's Cam Kitchens, who will probably return. So shout out to Broshmo. I think he dropped a video on that. But, I would probably try to target Cam Kitchens or Tyler Nubin at this point. Speaking of Nubin, he's here at pick number 26. You have two safeties over 30 that are going to be cap hits. Probably one of them will be gone. Newbin is like the ideal safety that could, like, this is my dream location for Newbin. The more, like, when I think of him in the NFL, my first thought of him is in a Seahawks helmet. Like, this guy belongs in Seattle. So for me, I don't think it's a need right now, but especially if you make that one move, this guy is going to be an A+ selection. Then you got all roads lead to Rome. I make this pick myself. I think this team needs a true wide receiver one. I don't believe yet that Rome could be a pure wide receiver one, but I like to look at it from both my angle as well as the consensus. And this is, I mean, at the worst, he's going to be a really solid wide receiver two on this team. And, at the very minimum, it's an upgrade. Then you got Kingsley Suamataia, can play left or right tackle. I would prefer for him to play right tackle, and that's exactly where he would play, or where he would end up at on this roster. So big fan of that. Kingsley he looks a little too uncomfortable right now at left tackle. He's developing, but he looks like he wasn't ready to play left tackle. Then you got Kalen King. I mean, I literally have Kalen King as 14 on my board, and he's going to the Ravens. God forbid. But it's essentially an arms race between the Ravens and the Steelers to the top of the AFC North. Now it's no longer because what team is better, but what team has their quarterback healthy. But Kalen King, this is a very big need for it's a huge need with a great player at a very high value position. Like, it's a great pick. Great pick. I did not know that he was 8th on their board. Holy shit. Did y'all see that? That is wild. I mean, I thought I was the biggest fan of Kalen King. Apparently not. Apparently CBS loves him. Then you got Graham Barton here. I think this is an unbelievably underrated move for the Lions. He's going to play right guard, but the fact is, injuries to any part of the offensive line, this guy can fill in. I love it. He's a Swiss Army knife. He deserves to go earlier. His talent level is probably around this spot, maybe a little bit later. I don't think that he's the most talented offensive lineman pure talent offensive lineman in the class. But the roles and the hats he can put on and the roles he can play, I think is totally worth taking earlier. It's a weird thing because I don't usually like saying stuff like that. You got Chris Jenkins here for the Chiefs. I mean, for me, I am totally fine with this. Defensive interior is where I love to go for KC, and this guy's going to be a supreme talent for y'all. And then to end it off, we got Jordan Morgan. So I love Jordan Morgan's upside, and I think this is a good spot for him to end up landing. However, I do think edge rusher, there are a lot of them that are still available. Luckily, none of them in my top 10, but you got guys like Xavier Thomas who wouldn't be selected here. He'd probably be like at the earliest, maybe a late second. But you got Jonah Ellis out of Utah. He's a little bit too light for what you're looking for. But let's find who I would take at this pick. We have a minute to look over stuff. We got Princely Umanmielen. He's a little bit on the heavier side at 254. Tyler Barron honestly feels like he belongs as an Eagle. Looking at it, honestly, there's not an edge rusher I would like for the Eagles at this point. So I would opt for a corner. And looking at the ones who I adore, I personally would be looking right here at Dwight McGlothern. That would be the guy who I would say is a sneaky option. You could, of course, look into the receiving room. It's a good pick. Bottom line, it's a good pick. I'm not finding too many guys who I would take over this. Safety-wise, of course, you can go Cam Kinchins, because I don't know if you're going to keep Kevin Byard, but it is what it is. None of the quarterbacks decided to go in this mock draft as well, which is intriguing, but it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching and supporting as always. See you on the far side. Peace.